Namaste, dear students. I am Dr. Pallavi Gupta. Today I will deliver my lecture on the electoral corrupt practices. Electoral corrupt practices. As in the previous lecture, I have already discussed the classification of corrupt practices, which was mentioned in the RP Act 1951 before 1956. And after 1956, all the malpractice related to elections were all come all together as a corrupt practices that I will discuss today as the general idea of electoral corrupt practices and the corrupt practices and offenses under other law. Although this point I will not discuss in this lecture today, but I will focus on the regarding the general idea of the corrupt practices and how many malpractices are corrupt practices. Straightway, I would like to say that the candidate and the agent will be disqualified for doing certain acts or omissions which are prohibited under the category of corrupt practices, and uh, and it was narrated or it was observed and held by the Supreme Court in various case laws that to maintain the free and fair election, it is essential that the persons who are involved in this malpractice should not be allowed to pollute the election process. So, therefore, here the meaning of electoral right we have to understand in that way. The electoral right means right of a person to stand or not to stand as a candidate, or to withdraw or not to withdraw from being a candidate, or to vote or refrain from voting at an election under section 79 subclause D RP Act 1951 and under section 171 subclause uh, A subclause small b of IPC. So electoral right has been defined like this. In the case of People's Union for Civil Liberties and Union of India, Supreme Court has clarified that the electoral rights include the right to remain natural or even cast a negative vote, for which purpose suitable provisions should be made in the ballot paper and voting machines by providing an additional panel or an additional button for indicating such choice by the voter, as has been explained various time already. Means the electoral right includes the negative right also. But here, since we are discussing the corrupt practice, so we have to focus on the corrupt practices only. So these are the various kinds of the malpractice which are considered as a corrupt practices, starting from the bribery, undue influence, appeal to vote on the ground of religion, race, caste, etc., promotion of feeling of enmity, propagation of commission of sati, publication of false statement relating to the character of a person, of course, candidate, procuring of vehicle for the free use for the voter, or incurring of expenditure in the election in excess, obtaining assistance of the government servant for furtherance of candidate selection, bribery at election. Okay, yes, bribery. Here, the Section 123. Section 123 says that bribery may be described by simple means as an inducement to a person by wrong means to do or not to do a thing which he may otherwise have not done or done. Means it's a kind of inducement. According to section 123 subclause 1, bribery means any gift, offer or promise by a candidate or by his agent or by any person with the consent of candidate, and this gift has been given or offer has been made by candidate to any person with the object of inducing a person to stand or not to stand, or to withdraw or not to withdraw from being a candidate at an election. And this promise, offer, or any gift has been given to induce an elector to vote or to refrain from voting at an election, or as a reward to a person for a person having so stood or not to stood, or for having withdrawn or not having withdrawn his candidature, or an elector for having voted or refrained from voting. So, meaning thereby bribery is a gift, it is a promise or offer made by a candidate to any person for this purpose. And second subclause of section 123 says, means subclause 1, subclause B, the receipt of any gratification or agreement to receive any gratification as a reward or as a motive by a person for standing or not standing as, for withdrawing or not withdrawing from being a candidate, or by a person whomsoever gratification by a person for voting or for refraining from voting, or inducing or attempt to induce any elector to vote or refrain from voting, or any candidate to withdraw or not to withdraw his candidature. Here the gratification is not restricted to pecuniary gratification or gratification estimable in a money, or it includes all form of entertainment and all forms of employment for reward. So meaning thereby this definition consists of two parts, A and B. The first part, A, relates to the giver of the bribe, and second part, B, is the recipient of the bribe, and this bribe are giving for the purpose of to stand or not to stand, withdraw or not to withdraw, to give the vote or to refrain from voting. If any person involved in this act of bribery will be disqualified, and that will be discussed later. And the second is the and second point is corrupt, that is, we can say, the second corrupt practices is the undue influence. Before discussing the undue influence, here I would like to say that regarding the bribery, there should be inducement to an elector to vote or refrain from voting, or to a candidate to stand or not to stand. It should be clearly borne in the mind that it is not every gift or offer or promise of gratification to voter which may attract provision of section 123 subclause 1. In such gift, offer or promise there should be an element of bargaining for votes. Any such gift, offer or promise of gratification should be made asking for the vote in the return. And yes, undue influence. Section 123 subclause B is talking about undue influence. It says that any direct or indirect or attempt to interfere with the free exercise of any electoral right that we have. Electoral right I have already discussed. It means the right of a person to stand or not to stand as a candidate, or to withdraw or not to withdraw from being a candidate, or to vote or refrain from voting at an election. Uh, so the scope of the provision is says that uh, for an election to be free and fair, exercise of electoral right by every elector according to his own free will is a basic postulate, but it does not mean the voter should remain totally uninfluenced. Voter may be uninfluenced, may be influenced one. So, the most common form of the undue influence is to force a voter to vote or not to vote for a particular candidate in an election at all by making threat of physical injury in case of any deficiency of such dictate, hurling of bombs at a polling station when the polling process was on, and thereby scaring away the voters was considered to be committing a corrupt practices of undue influence under section 123 subclause 2. So we can say the undue influence at an election is a corrupt practice, and it is done with the free. It is done means it is interference with the free exercise of any electoral right. It is provided by. It can be done by the undue influence by the threat of injury, undue influence by threat of divine displeasure or spiritual censor, and undue influence caused by the suppression of the information about criminal antecedent. And here see, so the corrupt practices or corrupt practices of undue influence is committed not by threat of physical injury alone. The threat may be of injury of any kind. Such injury may include social ostracism or expulsion from any caste or community. Man is a social animal, and threat of his social expulsion from society will create as a strong a fear in his mind as the threat of physical injury, as it was observed by the Supreme Court in a case. Now, undue influence by threat of divine displeasure or spiritual censor. In a country like India, where the vast majority of the people are religious minded and have a strong religious belief, Undue influence may be caused not merely by the threat of injury but also by the inducing or attempting to induce electors to believe that they would become object of divine displeasure or spiritual censure. An appeal to voters, an appeal to voters that it would be a religious act to vote in certain manner and that the failure to vote in the manner would be against religion and thus create a fear in their mind of divine displeasure or spiritual censure. It would not only be an appeal on the ground of religion as prohibited under section 123 subclause 3 but also the corrupt practices of undue influence under section 123 subclause 2. So, and now the third point, undue influence caused by suppression of the information about criminal antecedent. And it says that the Supreme Court added in the case of Krishnamurti versus Shiv Kumar in uh, in 2015 that the meaning of it the in me I can say Supreme Court added the dimension in the term of corrupt practices here undue influence. And in this case, what happened? The written candidate in his affidavit filed along with the nomination paper had suppressed the details of the criminal cases pending against him, and of which the court had taken cognizance, and it was contended that for filing a false affidavit, his nomination paper ought to have been rejected by the returning officer. The Supreme Court held the suppression of the information in the affidavit by the candidate amounted to corrupt practices of undue influence and is deprived to vote the voters to make an informed and advised choice, as a consequence of which it would come within the compartment of direct or indirect influences. So here I would like to discuss one case again, that is Ram Dayal versus Santalal. This is the case of 1959. Here the religious or spiritual leader has a right to exercise his influence in favor of any person candidate by voting for him and by convincing for the voters of the other for that candidate. Like any other citizen, he has a right to express his opinion on the individual merits of the candidate, and if he merely seeks votes for any particular candidate, that would only be a legitimate use of his influence among a particular section of the voters. But where the speech of such a religious or spiritual had transgressed the limits of appeal to votes on the merit or the worth of the candidate and partakes the character of hukum or farman, leaving no free choice to voters to vote against such dictate and implifying thereby that disobedience of such mandate would carry divine displeasure or spiritual censure, such appeal would fall within the ambit of section 123 subclause 2. And so and to constitute the corrupt practices of undue influence. Because in this case, a circular was issued by a religious head of Namdhari Sikh to the voters of the constituency belonging to the sect, containing a command to them from Sri Satguru Sacha Patsha that they should vote for a particular candidate, taking it to be their primary duty to make him successful in the election. The Supreme Court held that the circular, the way it was worded, conveyed the distinct impression to the Namdhari voters that it was a mandate from their spiritual guru and that it was a it was their bounden duty under the strict order of their religious leaders to vote for the said candidate, and that any infringement of that mandate had implied in it the divine displeasure or spiritual censor. So, this is regarding the undue influence in the terms of threat of injury, threat of divine displeasure, or, or the suppression of the information about criminal antecedent. Appeal to vote on a particular ground, on the prohibited ground under section 123 subclause 3. Here, this the provision says that the appeal by a candidate or his agent or by any other person with the consent of a candidate or his election agent to vote. An appeal means appeal to vote or refrain from voting for any person on the ground of his religion, race, caste, community, or language, or the use of appeal to religious symbol, or use of appeal to national symbols such as national flag or national emblem for the furtherance of the prospect of the election of that candidate for affecting the election of any candidate prejudicially will be considered as a corrupt practices. So this is section 123 subclause 3, and such acts are considered as a corrupt practices. And this and in the case of Ramesh Yashwant Prabhu versus Prabhakar, the Supreme Court said the object of this section is to ensure that no candidate at an election gets vote only because of his religion, and no candidate is denied any vote on the ground of his religion. This is in keeping with the secular character of the Indian polity and rejection of the scheme of separate electorate based on the religion in our constitutional scheme. An appeal of the kind forbidden by Section 123 subclause 3 is based on the religion of a candidate need not necessarily be prejudicial to public order, and therefore the further element of likelihood of prejudice to public order is unnecessarily, on the account of which it is not implied in the provision, meaning thereby that the restriction imposed under section 123 subclause 3 on the that appeal to cast the vote appeal and not to cast the vote on the ground of race, caste, religion, language, or the religious symbol, etc., shall be considered as a corrupt practices. And if the person disqualified on this ground will not be uh, violative of the fundamental right of speech and expression guaranteed under Article 19 subclause 1 subclause 2. Such restriction is very much valid under Article 19 subclause 2. And then the promotion of feeling of anonymity. And section 123 subclause 3a, saying the promotion of feeling of anonymity or attempt to promote feeling of anonymity or hatred between the different classes of the citizen of India on the ground of religion, race, caste, community, or language by a candidate or his agent or by any person on the with the consent shall be of course it is right if it is done for the furtherance of the prospect of the election of that candidate or it or this promotion of the feeling prejudicially affect the election of any candidate is a corrupt practice. It is prohibited. It cannot be permitted. And here and in this case of Das Rio Deshmukh versus Kamal Kishore in 1995, a poster contained an appeal to the voters to vote for the appellant to reach the Muslim a lesson, to teach the Muslim as a lesson. The apex court held the poster to be per se highly offensive and potentially vulnerable and likely to bring hatred and misunderstanding between the Hindu and Muslim communities. The appeal in that poster was likely to rouse passion in the minds of the voters on communal basis and bring disharmony between the two communities, offending the secular structure of the country so as to constitute the corrupt practices within the meaning of Section 123, Subclause 3, Subclause A. And condemning reform by the Congress party as anti-Muslim and describing them as an interference by the Hindu Raj in the religion of Muslim was held to be promoting hostility between the people of different religion and falling within the ambit of section 123 subclause 3A. Here we can say the hate speeches will also be coming under the ambit of section 123 subclause 3A. Now the promotion of commission of sati, this is a new corrupt practices and new ground for disqualification which was introduced in 1988 by the amendment uh, in this act because uh, because uh, mm, because the Roop cover in Rajasthan in mid 1980 attempt to glorify it by certain section of the people there attracted by public attention and condemnation. So Parliament intervened and led to the enactment of the Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987, and it was Parliament and state legislature help it in this manner, and accordingly a new ground of the disqualification in respect of person convicted of any offence under the said Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987 punished with the imprisonment for 6 months was added in the section 8 of the 1951 Act, and further a new corrupt practices on the ground of promotion or the glorification of practice of the sati was introduced in the by the insertion of new section 123 subclause 3 subclause B in the act, and says that the promotion or propagation of the practice or the commission of sati or its glorification by a candidate or their agent or by any person with their consent for the furtherance of the prospect of the election of that candidate will consider be a corrupt practices. Now, the publication of the false statement under section 123 subclause 4. And regarding the false statement, it is saying that the publication of any statement by a candidate or his agent or by any other person with their consent, which is false and which he either believes to be false or does not believe to be true in relation to his personal character or conduct of any candidate or in relation to the candidature, or being a statement reasonably calculated to prejudice the prospect of that candidate's election, will consider be a corrupt practice. So this is the section 123 subclause 123 subclause 4. And now regarding this, it is important to say that what are the essentials required under this section is that okay, now free conveyance for the voters, as meaning thereby this is for this section is 123 subclause 6. Before discussing this point, I would like to discuss regarding this false statement, that it was held that the corrupt practices under section 123 subclause 4 shall be committed if each of the following ingredients are satisfied in relation to any publication of a statement. Number 1, it should be a statement of the fact. Second, it should be false. Third, the person making it either believes it to be false or does not believe it to be true. Fourth, it should be in relation to the personal character or conduct of any candidate or in relation to the candidature or withdrawal of any candidate. And fifth, it should be a statement reasonably calculated to prejudice the prospect of that candidate election. And it goes without saying that any such statement will fall within the ambit of section 123 subclause 4. This is a mischief, and this mischief is made by the candidate himself or by his agent or with his consent by any other person. Publication of a statement does not mean that it should be something written. Even an oral statement comes within the ambit of section 123 subclause 4, or we can say the recitation of a poem of a public in a public meeting also amount to a publication within the meaning of section 123 subclause 4. Now section 123 subclause 5. It is saying the free conveyance of the voters. The law frowns upon free conveyance of the voters to and from polling stations on the day of poll. Ingredient of this corrupt practices is that it is in the two part as Supreme Court observed in the case of Rizak Ram versus J.S. Chauhan. This section falls into two parts. The requirement of the first part are the hiring or procuring, whether on payment or otherwise, of any vehicle or vessel for the free conveyance of the voters. Second, if such hiring or procuring must be by a candidate or his election or any other person with their consent, Second part says the use of such vehicle or vessel for the free conveyance of any elector other than the candidate himself to or from any polling station it will be considered as a corrupt practices. And now section 123 subclause 6 is saying it is saying about the expenditure of the election expenditure during the election. So here it is categorically mentioned that that if there is a expenditure made by candidate, not political party, by candidate at an election in excess the limit which is prescribed will be considered as a corrupt practices, and the limit is prescribed under section 77 subclause 3. And the and the yes, it is here I would like to say that failure to keep election account, yeah, it is a electoral offense under the IPC, so it not that much required to discuss over here. Yes, obtaining assistance of government services for the furtherance of the election. It is of course necessary to discuss this thing. And yes, uh, it is very clearly mentioned in the section 123 subclause 7 that the obtaining or procuring any assistance from the person who are in the who is a government servant by the candidate or his election agent or by any person with their consent for the furtherance of the prospect of that candidate election will be considered as a corrupt practices. So who are those person? Those person may belong to this position as a gazetted officer, stipend judges and magistrate, member of the armed forces of the union, member of the police forces, exercise office officers, revenue officers other than village revenue officers known as Lambardars, Malguzars, Patels, Deshmukh or by any other name. So they if anyone takes their service assistance for the furtherance of their election will be considered as a corrupt practices. And further it is mentioned that okay, further it is mentioned that it is not necessary whether they are in service or not, but they are government servant, then it is considered as a corrupt practices. And here it is also mentioned that the person such class of the person uh, who are in the service of a local authority, university, government, company, or the institution or the concern are undertaking appointed or deputed by the election commission in connection with the conduct of election. So if it is very clear under section 123 subclause 7 that if any candidate or his agent or with the consent of the candidate or his agent someone take the assistance of these officers for the furtherance of their election will be considered as a corrupt practices and it is not permitted. It is not permitted. The policy underlying the provision is that for an election to be fairly conducted, it is of the paramount importance that the government machinery acts with the absolute impartiality and neutrally. Therefore, the obtaining or procuring of the assistance of government service servant for the furtherance of the prospect of the election of candidate has been made a corrupt practices. And this underlying idea has been observed by the Supreme Court in the case of Raj Krishna Bose versus Vinod in the year of 1954. Now the booth capturing. Booth capturing, yes, it is a new addition to the list of corrupt practice. It is considered as a corrupt practices as well as electoral offences. Booth capturing has been one of the oldest form of the rigging election. Although this was introduced in the 1988 as a corrupt practices, but it has the same meaning as it was mentioned in the electoral offense as well. So here now, here I have written here that the booth capturing will mean the unauthorized casting of the votes by some person other than the genuine voters, either by threatening them, the other person, or by intimidating or threatening the in, uh, or threatening to the polling officers to surrender the ballot papers. There are various ways to for the booth capturing, or it can be done by preventing the voters from going to the polling station. These two grounds deals with different aspects of the corrupt practices. By explanation to section 123 as inserted by the amendment in 19, it was provided that for this purpose of section 123 subclause 8, booth capturing shall have the same meaning as under section 135A of that act, which was also newly inserted in this act. So booth capturing is to be done by the use of the force or intimidation, the threatening, double voting, cheating, etc., etc. So these are these malpractices. If it is carried by any candidate or his agent, or with the consent of the candidate or his agent, any person uh, committed or omitted these practices, committed these practices shall be considered as a prohibited practices, corrupt practices, and the candidate shall be disqualified if it is proved. So this is all about corrupt practices. The next topic for my discussion or for my lecture will be the electoral offences.